All right. I'm Lauren,
And I'm David.
and this is Team Chaos answering your Jiu-Jitsu questions. All right. Are you ready,
Okay, what's
David?
your question?
All right. We have a question from a white belt. How do you approach focusing on learning a topic? I'm having a hard time this month with closed guard because I feel like when we actually get to situationals, nothing works. They go on to talk a little bit about, hey, is this just finding a training partner to drill things more with? Is it that they're not getting enough muscle memory from the 1 hour class? But I think, and, add as you wish, David, I think the crux of it is how do you bridge the gap from drilling a move to actually having it work in situationals? Would you agree?
Sounds like that's the nexus of the question, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Let's do this.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. I think that when I think of someone who's a white belt who's in the first like 6 months to a year or even less time, I think it splits into two different parts, and I think that one of those parts is the mental component, and one of those parts is not literally the physical component, but more the like what are your actual action steps. And so to address the mental component first, the main thing is that jiu-jitsu takes a long time to learn, and it's okay that it's not working in situationals. um, and so you're trying to do a couple things in your class. Hopefully, if you're in a good class, you're trying to teach your body step by step how to do the move, and then in the situational you're trying to train your body just to look for the move. But you're probably going to need like more than three things from close guard to find success. So I think having the mentality of even if it doesn't work right now, this is going to come back around. And the next time I see it, whether that's in 3 months or a year or whatever, when I see it again, I'm going to have a much broader base of jujitsu, and I'm probably going to be able to find new aspects that will work. And I won't have to concentrate so much on doing each individual step to find success. What do you think?
Yeah, I think those points are super valid. Plus one to especially the fact that like when you're new in jujitsu, it's not necessarily that you may or may not know the A, B, C, D on how to do a move. And so you can see some success when you're having a drilling partner that's feeding you the exact reactions that you need. There are so many like sub layers within that just small shifts of your body weight or certain kinds of control or how exactly you're gripping are going to make a big difference. And so I just want to echo what you said is that it's going to take a long time to get a sense of what is jujitsu and how to maneuver and be in jujitsu. And then like just to build off of things that I think about, like first and foremost, I'm big on this general concept of like you need to figure out how you learn, and that could take years and years and years, and a lot of people never really figure that out how they learn that well. um and so some of that's like you need to experiment and explore like what do you need to figure that out. And so one avenue of this is yes, find a drilling partner that you can do after, but you're not just drilling the move because you're getting an okay amount of that in class, and maybe you do need to like get some more reps to tighten it up and iron out all the the areas where you can improve. But I think you want to find an escalation of resistance, in my opinion, is one of the best ways to progress through at least a 1-2 combo in a move. So if it's close guard, I have my armbar and my waiter sweep or whatever I'm working that are very complementary to each other. And you have it where the top person is not just feeding you the right reactions, but they're feeding you one of two reactions, and it's 25%, 30%, 35%. And you keep escalating up because one of the challenges when you go from like drilling against a very compliant to a live roll, even in situations, to a very non compliant opponent, especially if they've been doing it longer than you, it's really hard. There's a giant chasm there. And one way to do that is and we do this in the gym sometimes, to varying degrees of people knowing how to modulate to 50% or 60%. But if you can get a really good, training partner to do it at least occasionally, where you're going, okay, I'm letting you drill. Okay, you got the refinement. You're looking good. Now I'm going to resist. I'm going to resist a little bit more. And then you start getting up to the ability where you can okay, now I can feel it a little bit better and get some success. Because a lot of times when you're early in your jiu-jitsu career, but even later on too, it's finding success in positions builds a confidence that you can do it right, and you just need to find more avenues and more ways to find that success.
I think that sounds awesome, and I think you're honing in on the same thing I'm thinking, which is make the positionals more effective for your training. And that's hard. That is something that I think everyone is trying to figure out how to do, where there was a reel going around from a wrestler where they're like, your partner's not going to be a statue, and so you need to be when they say they're doing wrestling drilling, they're actually doing positionals, but that still takes a big base of skill to have it be effective and doable. If you're coming in and you've only been training for 6 months, you're probably not going to be that good at a positional. So one thing that I would add too, in addition to trying to modulate the amount of effort that you're exerting, is setting different. Is he there?
I don't
know. One thing you can do to try to make the positionals a little more effective is to set different goalposts. And we're seeing this a lot more with CLA and everything, saying, hey, instead of just saying one person's trying to escape close guard and one person's trying to submit from there, start by having a high guard over the shoulder and then say go, and say the person's just trying to get their shoulder back in, or they're trying to escape all the way. You could also say, hey, we're going to start not just with over the shoulder, you're going to easy in, hard out. You're going to drill your way all the way to almost having the arm bar, and then, put the person in the defensive posture and say go. And just continuing to toy with okay, we have easy in, hard out. What happens if I've started to get it, now we're going to have hard in, easy out, where once I get to over the shoulder, that's going to be our battle. And then we're going to pause and we're going to slow down, and you're going to let me finish the armbar. And I think giving people it can be hard to, more so with kids, it can be hard to cue, when are you slowing down? But setting those different goalposts might give you the chance to make it a little easier to bridge that gap, and to help your body see what else could be there, and to find what your body might naturally do.
Yeah, and just to clarify for you plebes that don't know, CLA is constraint-led approach, and that is the general idea of exactly what Lauren is saying. You give different constraints to the position and what you're trying to get at, and that leads to something I wanted to discuss a little bit, is knowing what success looks like. And so the CLA games or positions or even just live training or the situations, if you don't have a sense of what your end goal is, that's a problem. And so, I also liked your talking about having different guideposts. And so, yeah, you might not get success across the board. This is Logan. You might not get success across the board, but you'll be able to at least, get further along the path. I think of it as you're doing a run in a game that you get to the first checkpoint, then you get to the next checkpoint.
Doing a roguelite.
Yeah, you're doing a roguelite, and you get a little bit further along. And I think that one area where
can I pause you there?
Yeah.
Because I think that's really good, and that brings it back to the mentality component, which is if you're a white belt or a blue belt or whatever, and you're trying to do something new, this is happening for me with K-guard. It's if I'm seeing the entrance to the knee bar and starting to do it from K-guard, I should consider that a win, And so especially when you're a white belt, man, there's just not going to be very many times when you're actually finishing a submission on someone, unless you're just really big, or maybe you come from, you're just like
You're
very
going
athletic or
against a
whatever.
Trial person.
Yeah, you're going against the trial person.
You gotta find your wins. That's the best part of being around for longer is you find your wins.
Yeah, but like having that might not happen very often, especially like for me, I'm a small human, like didn't have, it was very rare. And I was game, but like it will help you avoid some of like the emotional suffering of jiu-jitsu if you are able to say, hey, and create like clear goals. Hey, my goal is to try to see that the armbar opportunity is there, or my goal is to like get 25% of the way to finishing an armbar, which might be getting the high guard, or it might be getting an angle, or it might be breaking their posture. So setting those mental goalposts will help build your game as well.
And like I think also to piggyback on that is like being able to identify with more clarity what is going on that's preventing me from being able to, and that just takes time and reflection, and sometimes it's going to be really hard to be able to identify that, but the better you can get at identifying what is going wrong with continuing to progress, that's how you're going to be able to backfill. And sometimes what makes it extra difficult, two things. One is it's something that was incorrect early, and it makes it really hard later on. And so that's an extra difficult skill, but that is still something you want to be really aware of.
Are you saying early in the role or early in your training?
Earlier in that particular sequence.
Okay.
So sometimes if you're in a position and you place your foot incorrectly earlier and you're doing the 2 or 3, like A is slightly suboptimal. B, C, D are fine, but when you get to E step, because your foot's in the wrong place, it makes it really hard to turn the corner well, or whatever it might be. And so, sometimes it's not just the step right before, it could be a couple other steps before that was really the turning point, and it just got compounded later on. And then the second thing is like when you're rolling with other white belts, you don't know what good movement is. And so like we always joke the white belt spaz, and that's not even necessarily like you're doing, like you're just freaking out and whatever. It could just be like you're turning your body in a really weird way, like you won't expect it. And so getting like these unconventional reactions are a part of life, and you'll learn how to just absolutely feast on it later on. But when you're still learning the basics, like it's such a weird reaction to have to deal with. And so sometimes it's trying to let go of those random moments and hone in again on recognizing successes of how far you've gone, but how did it devolve? Like where was the problem, and where can you either tighten up and perform a little bit better, or find that that's a spot in the path that you need to take a different direction. Because sometimes especially when
I'm going to interrupt you again because you're talking for a long time.
Let me finish this real quick.
Okay, fine.
When your repertoire is really small, it's very easy to get stuck going down one route.
Yeah, that's fair. That's legit. No, this person was saying, hey, like, I'm trying to set up the arm bar, and they're just standing up. And it's like, well, they're probably standing up because their posture isn't broken, and you're not yet, especially if this is a smaller human against bigger humans, like, it might be very difficult for you to ladder up with just your legs. Like you're probably going to need a collar grip. And so that's where it's like, hey, you're not even getting to like kicking over the head or a high guard or whatever. They're just standing up right away because you're not disrupting their base, because you're not disrupting their posture. And so having that earlier like strategy adjustment is what will probably like behoove, okay, later if I do these other things, now I can feed it into my armbar. And that's something that like what's crazy to me is where I try to like, especially for people with more like perfectionist tendencies or really high expectations of themselves, like I try to help them set reasonable expectations where I'm like, this is something that I'm dealing with right now in my open guard, I'm trying to just hit this move without off balancing my opponent, and without doing that, it's not creating the openings. I'm having to force them, and with people that are good, that's going to be really hard.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think finding, like you're saying, the reasonable goals to be met is super, super important. And I think very related to that is like, you're going to fail a lot in jiu-jitsu when you're starting out. Most people are. I was very lucky. I had some wrestling experience beforehand, and I knew how my body worked. I learned very well. Even so, like, there's still plenty of times where I'm like, I don't know what this is, or I'm not giving the right reaction, and it's okay to, like, quote unquote fail, because it's all cliche. It's a learning opportunity, and it's not always a learning opportunity. Sometimes it's just whatever, but a lot of those times it's a learning opportunity to hopefully, with some percentage, it's not going to be every single time. You can't stop, okay, now I analyze and start writing down notes or do whatever you need to do. But with at least some frequency, like, look back and reflect at what needs to happen for this to be a little bit more successful. But a lot of it's just like, put in time and put in you're putting a lot of votes in, and a lot of those votes are getting cast aside, but occasionally they'll start building up over time, and you'll get better and better in those positions. And hopefully you have that one thing you're trying, and people know, okay, now you have the next thing. They're reacting the same way most of the time. Okay, have an answer to that. So you have, whether it's like what Lauren was saying, is you have to address breaking their posture earlier on with their collar grip, and you're using your legs and pulling their head down or whatever it might be, to now I'm using that to drop down and underhook the leg and sweep them that way. I don't know. I call it lumberjack sweep.
Yeah, waiter sweep.
Waiter sweep.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be building a game off of, I'm trying to do a thing. They make a reaction very reliably. Okay, I want a reaction to that reaction.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like how you're saying, hey, I'm going to have a two-pronged way to deal with this scenario. I'm going to try to take more preventative measures to, like, address what they're doing beforehand. I'm breaking their posture more. And hey, sometimes they all want to stand up. I'm going to do this anyway. I'm going to have a reaction to, like, okay, the things I tried went wrong. I know they're standing up. Now I'm going to build my waiter sweep. I think that's a really, like, great way to tackle the problem. I think maybe we could try kind of summarizing, like, the bullet points of what we've been talking about here to give y'all, like, some easy takeaways.
Yeah, I think if I were to summarize from my perspective, it's find more opportunities to find goalposts along the line or whatnot that are showing success, that you're progressing. Being okay with it being slow sometimes, or not always working with different people. Try to find opportunities to do, like, a constraint-led approach where you're having different modalities, whether it's easy in, hard out, or hard in, easy out, or one's going a different percentage or whatnot, to be able to explore the position some more. What are some other key parts?
I think we haven't really talked about this. I think it still is helpful, for me at least. I like drilling. I think drilling was really helpful for me for the first, like, 3 to 5 years of my, like, jiu-jitsu time, as, like, one of the not most coordinated, no grappling experience background kind of people. So I think having that extra drilling time for the moves that you're still ironing out is helpful. And then I think also, like, show an instructor what's happening for you, or describe to them, or try to ask them, hey, could you, like, watch me do this round, and see what they say. Getting that outside opinion would probably be helpful. And then honestly, like, just especially in white belt, I advocate for people all the time, like, keep a journal, write it down, and just, like, getting your thoughts out will probably help you see, like, what's tending to happen, and you can look back later and, like, see how far you've come, and that's really cool and really helpful for you on your journey.
Yeah, I think the only other big part is, like, make sure that you are trying to build a preventative for the follow through of what's going wrong or going awry, and build up your next move on the sequence to base off of their top reaction.
Mm-hmm.
That's often how like I build a game is I go to a spot where I'm going for one like key primary goal, and then they're going to react in one of 2 or 3 different predictable ways, and I start building a game off of those reactions. And so I think, and then lastly, I think just patience.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really hard to be early in something and just not realizing that there are so many small, indescribable, often things that are going to lead to you being able to execute better. And it just takes time being on the mat and being open and challenging yourself and going through the hard times mentally and physically. And just being open and curious and try to like push down the frustration somewhat.
Yeah, that was one thing when I talked to this person was kind of like, hey, you're asking your mind to do a lot. You're asking, I know we've segued a little bit from like the bullet points, but you're asking your mind to try to like execute a complex sequence of movements that you've practiced like under 100 times in your entire life, and you're also trying to pick up like what your opponent is doing, and like the longer you train, the more of those things end up getting put on the back burner of your brain, where you don't have to actively think about it. You're just responding. You're feeling, is my opponent's weight in the back of their legs, or like leaning forward, or is it going to this side or that? And you're not you're saying, okay, now I've drilled this move so much I don't have to think about oh yeah, okay, like grab the collar, okay, foot on the hip. Like you just do it. You just feel it, and your body executes. And getting to that point takes a really long time for a lot of people. So yeah.
If you want to nerd out, it's the adult learning model is this idea that you're unconsciously incompetent. So that's like a baby doesn't even know driving exists, and then you enter the stage of conscious incompetence. You're 12 years old. You realize driving is a thing, but you don't know how, or you haven't practiced or anything else like that. Then you go to conscious competence. Okay, you're first learning, hopefully you're paying attention. You gotta really put a lot of effort into it, but you can do it when you put it in there. And then you've been driving for 20 plus years. You're unconsciously competent. You don't have to think about it. And so jiu-jitsu and life in general is about taking what's relevant, what you want to, from unconscious competence to conscious incompetence to conscious competence to unconscious competence, and going back to like what Lauren is saying, drilling or exposing yourself or working in constraint-led approach like games or scenarios are moving things along that path. And there's all these other things that you're not even mindfully or purposely pushing along that path that you will start to build up on top of the things that you're purposely trying to push through the path.
This is, of course, excluding like the 10-year-old who's like, I've never learned how to drive, but I obviously know how to.
Do you know anyone like that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, if I were to summarize, like a lot of it's just stick to it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, don't expect jiu-jitsu to be like a lot of other things where you can kind of speed run to some significant competence. It's not going to happen very easily. And even with my very rapid pace, I had wrestling before.
Yeah.
There are things that overlap, sure, but it's more about like, I know how my body works and balance and that kind of stuff. And so like that was my speed run. That was like a lot of the precursor to where I was at. And even there's still going to be tons of stuff that comes up that's just difficult to deal with, and I may or may not be able to find resolutions to earlier. And that's just, it's a frustrating part about jiu-jitsu, but it's also a really beautiful part about jiu-jitsu is it's not easy to hack. It's not easy to really cut corners on. You can find a game that, like, I just funnel people in here and stuff like that, but like that's not learning.
Not cool.
That's not the journey. And that might be what you want to do, and that's totally fine, but like it's not the journey. That's the most beautiful part about jiu-jitsu is that it is ever expanding. The permutations of possibilities are endless because you might go against a different body style. They're tired. They're super pumped up. They might be, just a woman versus a male, or a big guy, a tall, lanky guy. There's just a person learns new techniques and stuff. They become a different person. So even if you're training with the same person over the years, they are different month after month. And it's just really cool that the game is ever dynamic and ever evolving. And even one specific role versus the next day can be wildly different based off of many, many different things. And so it's really fun, but it also makes it sometimes a little bit frustrating because you don't have that depth of experience to kind of draw upon.
That is one thing that I had forgotten it, but now I remember is that I think part of what's really cool about jiu-jitsu is like David and I are both like college graduates. We've put a lot of time into like learning a lot of different things, and I feel like a big part of that people really like about jiu-jitsu is that it really clarifies how to learn something. And really, like, if you're learning jiu-jitsu and then you're like, oh, I want to learn an instrument or something, you're like, well, I just have to drill this like this many times a day, and I need to put in these kinds of hours. And I feel like it really elucidates how to learn kind of anything, and that learning process won't be linear, and so good luck, yeah.
The last thing I'll close with is like one of the most important concepts in your jiu-jitsu journey, in my opinion, is retrospective comparison. Because I think the saying comparison is the thief of joy, or whatever it is. Is very true, because you're always going to be comparing yourself to the person ahead of you, or the person that's progressing faster, or the whatever. The most important thing is to look at you when you first started. Like, how much better are you now than when you first started 6 months ago, or a year ago, or even just a few weeks ago? Like, more now than you did before. And that's something that's so hard to do, to look back at your former self and be like, I would beat the living shit out of that person. And that is empowering and motivating and stuff like that, but it's really hard to internalize that. But I would implore people to try.
Because we all secretly want to beat the crap out of ourselves. I mean, we're doing jiu-jitsu.
Yes,
so it's
dear.
highly likely.
Yes, dear. And on that wonderful note, it has been another Ask the Black Belts segment.
Ask Team Chaos. Yeah. Questions for Team Chaos.
Questions for Team Chaos.
Yeah. Jits Ponderings from Team Chaos.
Jits Ponderings.
Jits Ponderings.
Jits Ponderings.
Yeah.
There's something in philosophy and jitsology.
Jitsology.
Jitsologically. I don't know. Philosophical jits.
All right.
Yeah,
we should probably.
It's going downhill.
Should we do like an intro or whatever?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.